Now we're going to write a recursive rule for an arithmetic sequence. As we know, recursive means I'm doing something repeatedly. That's what recursive is, doing something repeatedly. And the recursive rule relates your term value that you're trying to find. This is the current term value. I call it current term value because that's the value that you're trying to find or trying to write a rule for. So you have this current term value. It relates to one or more previous term values. One or more previous term values. So if you know your sequence, I start with my first term in my sequence. So let's take the example of our previous sequence. F of 1 was 60. F of 2, 80. F of 3, 100. F of 4 is 120. So as you see, I didn't put my term position. I only looked at my term values here because I'm going to relate one term value to another term value. So here, if I look at these terms, I'm doing something repeatedly to get my current term. My current term is what I'm trying to find. So we talked about the current term. The current term is the term that I'm trying to find. Say for example, if I'm trying to find f of 2, that's my current term then. The current term, how do I get it? I take my previous term, which is f of 1, and I add a 20 to it. So I get my current term, which is f of 2. Now if I want to find f of 3, the f of 3 becomes my current term. The current term, how do I get my f of 3? I take my f of 2 and I add my 20 to it. Then if I want to find f of 4 becomes my current term. How do I get my current term? I take my previous term, which is f of 3, and I add a 20 to it. Okay, so if I have to generalize this rule, my f of 1, I don't have any term in front of it, so I have to write it as is. F of 2 will be f of 1 plus 20. F of 3 will be f of 2 plus 20. F of 4 will be f of 3 plus 20. So we are getting the recursive nature of my function rule. So it's relating the current term to my previous term. Current term, previous term. Current term, the previous term. So if I have to find f of 5, it will become the previous term plus 20. What's the significance of this 20? What's the significance of it? That was my common difference. That was my common difference, wasn't it? Common difference, D. Alright. So if I keep on doing that, I want to write a rule for f of n. I can go on doing this. I need my f of n. What will be my previous term to f of n? For f of 5 it is f of 4. For f of 4 it is f of 3. For f of 3 it is f of 2. For f of 2 it is f of 1. For f of 1 I don't have an f of 0, so I have to write that number. Alright, so for f of n, if you look at these numbers, this is 1 less than my current term. 1 less than my current term position. 1 less than the current term position. So this will be f of n minus 1. So this is my previous term to my f of n. So it is relating one term value to another term value, not my input. Remember, my input was my position number. It is not relating my position number directly, but indirectly I am looking at my position number. Alright, but directly it is relating my current term to my previous term and my common difference. So this is my current term that I am trying to find, whichever term it is. And this is my previous term, one term prior to my current term. And this is my common difference. So if I have to generalize my recursive rule, I always write in two parts. Recursive rule I always write in two parts. Remember we said my f of 1 does not have a term prior to that. So I need to know where I'm starting. So I have to give you that information. So if I'm writing a recursive rule, my recursive rule always has two parts. My recursive rule always has two parts that I need to write. The first part is I have to give what my f of 1 is. Give f of 1. You need to know where you're starting. And the second part is all other terms. My first term is given. So this is starting from term number 2. How will I get it? I'll use my previous term, the term 1 less than what it is, and I add my common difference d. Alright, so this becomes my recursive rule. Together, I need to write them both. I have to give what f of 1 is, and I have to tell the rule for every other term, starting from term number 2. So in this rule, my n is greater than or equal to 2, meaning I am only using my rule starting from term number 2, because term number 1 is already given to me. I can only use this rule starting from term number 2. So let's do some examples. Say I have a sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. This is my n. My f of n, say I have 23, 29, 35, 41, 47, and so on. First of all, I need to make sure if this is an arithmetic sequence or not. So I need to make sure I have a common difference. What is the common difference between the consecutive terms in the sequence? I am adding a 6 every time. So since there is a common difference between the consecutive terms, this is an arithmetic sequence and my common difference is 6, right? So let's write an explicit rule and a recursive rule. Alright, for my explicit rule, it relates my n and my f of n, right? It relates my n and f of n. So f of 1 is 23, f of 2 is 23 plus 6, f of 3 is 23 plus 6 plus another 6, because I have to go from here to here. I add a 6, then again I add another 6. So f of 4 is 23 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6. So I keep on doing this. You don't have to do this for every time. I'm doing this because I want you to get into the groove as to how to figure out what's happening there. Once you understand this, you can straight away write the rule. You don't have to write all these stuff. So this is just to give you an idea where you're going with it. Alright. So this is my first term, which is 23. and I add a common difference. How many times? N minus 1 times. So that becomes my explicit rule for this particular sequence. So I need to know my first term and I need to know my common difference. Alright, these two parts, they are constantly occurring in your formula, right? So that's my explicit rule. Let's look at recursive rule. Remember, recursive rule, I have to write two parts. I have to give what my first term is, and I have to write a rule for every other term starting from term number 2. So let's take a look at this. My recursive rule, I have to give what my first term is. What's my first term? It's 23. F of 2 is f of 1 plus my common difference. F of 3 is f of 2 plus the common difference. F of 4 is f of 3 plus the common difference. Again, you don't have to write all this. This is just to give you an idea because it's a little tricky and you guys always get confused between f of n and f of n minus 1. So if you write this, you can see what's happening here. And my f of n, if I have to generalize, it is f of n minus 1 plus 6. So this is my recursive rule for n greater than or equal to 2, and I have to give what my f of 1 is. So together they make a recursive rule. Alright, so please take notes and we will see Tuesday. Have a great day.